what was left standing. I went into this to tear something down. Two campaigns: bring down Yeshua's deity and bring down the Spirit's personhood. Topple either pillar and the Trinity falls with it. Neither went the way I planned. The deity would not come down. The worship and the titles and the throne held it up. The death would not go fake. The emptying was real. The failsafe live and refused, and the Spirit was never a third someone to bring down at all. It was a breath. So I stopped swinging and looked at what was still standing in the rubble. It was not three persons in one substance. It was not a lonely, featureless monad either. It was something the Hebrew had been saying the whole time, that I had walked past for years. The picture whole, here it is, in 3 lines. There is the Father, the source. Uncontainable, unseeable, outside everything he made. The well. There is the Word, his manifestation, the one self-expression by whom the source creates, appears, speaks, and acts. Seen in the garden, enthroned in the visions, and at the last enfleshed as Yeshua. Not 3 of anything. One manifestation in different modes of presence. The water poured out. There is the breath, his ruach, the source's own presence going out, the manifestation's own life poured into his people. Not a third someone. The wind off the water. One God, his word, his breath. The source and his self-expression are one Yahuwah, not multiplied into 3, not flattened into a blank one, distinguishable, undivided. And let me head off the obvious objection before it lands, because it's the one I respect most. Isn't this just modalism? One God in masks? No. Modalism dissolves the distinction. One person playing roles in turn with no real other. This keeps the distinction real, a genuine to and from, the us, a son who actually prays to the Father. Modes of presence, not masks worn in sequence. A real relationship, not a solo performance. That difference, the real living distinction modalism throws away, is the whole reason this reading is not that one, why it stands. Here is why I trust it, after I had stopped trusting so much. It is not propped on a single verse. Pull any one proof text out, and the picture does not fall, because it was never balanced on one. It stands on a convergence, text after independent text, Genesis to Revelation, all leaning the same way. The source cannot be seen. Exodus 33:20, 1 Timothy 6:16, 1 Kings 8:27. Yet he was seen. Hagar, the bush, Peniel. So the one seen is his manifestation, not the source. That manifestation is named the Word, fully God by nature, the exact imprint of his being. John 1:1, Hebrews 1:3, Colossians 1:15. He receives the worship Yahweh shares with no one. Philippians 2:10, Isaiah 45, Hebrews 1:6, Revelation 5:13. Wears Yahweh's own titles. Revelation 22:13, Isaiah 44:6. Sits in the seat no angel is given. Psalm 110:1, Hebrews 1:13. He emptied a real fullness to die a real death. Philippians 2:6-7. And you cannot empty what you do not have. The 2-figure throne scenes resolve to one throne, one him. Daniel 7, Revelation 5:22-3. And the breath is his own, possessive from Genesis to Joel, poured within once the incarnation opened the door. Ezekiel 36:27, Acts 2:33, Romans 8. No single link carries the whole weight. Every link points the same direction. That is not a proof text chain. Those snap at the weakest link. It is a convergence, and a convergence holds even when you grant a draw here and a tension there. I granted plenty of both. It still held. How to hold it? If you want the picture in your hand, it is the author analogy from my own chapter, the writer who puts himself into his story as a character. Uncontainable at his desk, yet able to be met on the page. The same person, in 2 ways of being. It carries the seen and the unseen, the contained and the uncontainable, in a single being. The one place it runs out is the conversing, the Father and the Son genuinely speaking. And I'll show at the end that most of even that comes home, with only the bare how left to watch. But for the shape of the thing, a source in its own self-expression, one God in 2 modes, it holds. Where this lands next to the Trinity, now the thing this whole book was built to do honestly, tell you where this reading stands beside the Trinity, including where it does not differ at all, because pretending to a difference I don't have would be its own kind of lie. On the things that matter most, the careful Trinitarian and I end in the same place. The Son is fully God. We both say yes, and flatly. The worship of Yeshua is not idolatry, because he is not another. We agree. The throne resolves to one. We agree. Walk into most of these texts, and a Trinitarian and I are standing shoulder to shoulder, reading them the same way. I will not manufacture daylight there. There is none. The daylight is real, but it is narrow, and I will name it exactly, the Spirit. I read the Ruach as God's own breath, not a third co-equal person. That is a genuine difference, the one I lean hardest on, and as I admitted, the one place the other reading still survives, the framing. I reach the one God through the Hebrew categories the text itself uses, the word, the name, the glory, the presence, not through the Greek vocabulary of the councils, ousia, hypostasis, two natures, eternal relations of origin. Not one of those words is in the Bible. The number of moves. And this is the heart of it. We arrive at the same God, but the Trinity gets there by adding a frame the text never uses, and then resting the hardest tension on a mystery you cannot follow. The Memra gets there reading the text in its own words, with one small mystery left, and far fewer steps in between. That is the whole of my claim. Not that the Trinity worships a false God. It does not. It reaches the true one, only that it reaches him the long way, through machinery the Bible never asked for, and that the shorter road was sitting in the Hebrew the entire time. The question that started it all, which at last answers the question that began the hunt, the worship I could not square with the Shema. When Thomas falls and says, "My Lord and my God," John 20:28, and Yeshua does not stop him, when every other righteous man and every angel in Scripture stops it cold, he is not adding a second God. He is recognizing the only God there is, in the form that God chose to wear. The Memra who created, walked, covenanted, and appeared, is standing in front of him, with the wounds still in his hands. The Shema is not broken, it is fulfilled. Yahuwah is one, and Yeshua is what the one Yahuwah looks like, when he steps into his own creation and says, "Now you can see me." The one seam, named now, closed at the end. End of section. I'll name the one honest seam right here, because a Berean doesn't hide the hard part. It is the conversing, the Father and the Son genuinely speaking, the let us, the glory with you before the world. Something real passes between the source and the manifestation, and I won't pretend a flat oneness swallows it. But it is not the blank wall it first looks like, and I won't leave you thinking it is. At the end I'll show you that most of it comes home, some of it spoken aloud for our sake, the rest the emptied Son genuinely praying to the Father, and that what remains is one small thing, how the one God is truly Father and Son at once. That last inch I do not dissolve, I watch it. He named it himself, in the tenderest words he had, and I have made my peace with seeing a relationship I cannot diagram. Every reading keeps one mystery right here. This one keeps the smallest and the warmest, one body left. So that is what was left standing when my demolition failed. One God, his word, his breath, read off the page, held by convergence, pictured as a source and his own self-expression, reaching the same Lord the Church has always worshipped, by a shorter road. There was only one stretch of Scripture I had not yet run it through, the one I'd been taught to lean on instead of the Old Testament, and the one a sharp reader will throw at me first. Paul,